The true story behind the Revenant, the ultimate revenge. Hugh Glass was a legendary frontiersman and fur trapper who is best known for his incredible tale of survival. What many don't know is that prior to this, he was a sailor and a pirate. Arrrrgh! Join us as we explore the remarkable strength of will that enabled him to persevere and survive his famous Grizzly Bear Attack. Watch to the end. You will be mortified when you learn the gruesome lengths Hugh Glass went to in order to exact revenge on those who left him for dead, or worse. Hugh Glass, the legendary frontiersman, was much more than just a man left for dead on the banks of the Grand River. He had a colorful past that was marked by adventure, danger, and courage. Born to Irish immigrant parents in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Glass led a relatively quiet life until he was captured by pirates in the Gulf of Mexico and served as a pirate under the Prince of Pirates, Jean Lafitte, for 2 years. He then escaped and was later captured by the Pawnee tribe, where he lived for several years, even marrying a Pawnee woman. In 1822, Glass learned of a fur trading venture called Ashley's 100, which called for 100 men to journey up the Missouri River to trade with local Native American tribes. Led by General William Henry Ashley, the men trekked westward and continued trading. However, the real test of Glass's endurance came later. In the summer of 1823, Hugh Glass was out scouting for a game near present-day Lemon, South Dakota, when he was attacked by a grizzly bear. The bear was relentless, repeatedly picking Glass up and dropping him, biting and clawing at him. It seemed as though there was no hope for Glass to survive such a vicious attack. However, to the surprise of all, Glass managed to fend off the bear using only the tools he had on him and with some help from his trapping party. This incredible feat of strength and survival has become a legendary tale, inspiring awe and wonder for generations. The expedition leaders believed he was mortally wounded and ordered 2 men, John Fitzgerald and Jim Bridger, to stay with him until he died. As Glass lay there, barely clinging to life after being mauled by a bear, his only movement was the occasional glance from his eyes, leaving the men to wonder if he recognized them or if he needed something. Though they had initially promised to bring him back to safety, they soon found that the added weight was slowing them down considerably, and they were approaching hostile Arrrrgghh Indian territory. As the men grew increasingly paranoid about their safety, they decided to leave Glass behind, taking his weapons and supplies with them. The Arrrrgghh were a Native American group who had previously engaged in fatal fights with Ashley's 100, including a skirmish that had left Glass himself wounded. The men knew that they were treading on dangerous ground and didn't want to risk their lives any further by carrying Glass, who they believed was unlikely to survive much longer anyway. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of Glass's incredible journey. Despite being left for dead, Glass refused to give up on life. Alone and defenseless, with no weapons or supplies, when he eventually regained consciousness, he was faced with a grim reality. His body was covered in infected wounds, he had a broken leg, and his ribs were exposed. Despite his dire situation, Glass refused to give up. He knew that he was about 200 miles from Fort Kiowa, and with nothing but his sheer willpower, he began his journey back to camp. Wrapping himself in a bear hide that the men had left with him, driven by his desire for revenge against Fitzgerald, Glass pushed himself to his physical and mental limits. He struggled to survive without any supplies or tools, but he was determined to make it back to camp and seek justice for the treacherous act committed against him. The details of Glass's journey later became shrouded in legend, making it challenging to distinguish fact from fiction. However, it is almost certainly true that he crawled at various points and relied on sheer willpower to keep moving forward. One of the most famous stories from his journey claims that Glass lost consciousness on one occasion and awoke to find a grizzly bear licking clean wounds that were infested with maggots. While this story may seem unlikely, it speaks to the incredible challenges that Glass faced and the determination that he possessed to survive against all odds. Despite the excruciating pain and the harsh conditions, Hugh Glass managed to crawl and gradually walk towards the camp. His survival instincts kept him going, and he foraged for food in the wilderness, mainly subsisting on berries, roots, and insects. Sometimes, when luck was on his side, he chanced upon the remnants of buffalo carcasses that had been picked apart by wolves. However, about halfway through his journey, he encountered a friendly tribe of Lakota who had a good relationship with the fur traders. Here, he was able to negotiate for a skin boat, which made his journey slightly easier as he no longer had to walk through the rough terrain. After 6 long and grueling weeks of travel, crawling and walking through the wilderness, covering a distance of approximately 250 miles, Hugh Glass finally reunited with Ashley's 100. He had thought he would find them at their original fort, but instead they were at Fort Atkinson, a new camp located at the mouth of the Bighorn River. Upon his arrival, Glass immediately re-enlisted in Ashley's 100, with one burning desire in his heart: to find Fitzgerald. Recuperating at Fort Kiowa after his incredible survival journey, Glass set out to seek vengeance against the 2 men who had abandoned him, Bridger and Fitzgerald. Along the way, he encountered new challenges, including dangerous encounters with Native Americans. Despite being wounded again in subsequent clashes with Native Americans, Glass continued his trapping expeditions and became a symbol of frontier justice and perseverance. His legend grew as stories of his incredible journey and survival were retold and embellished over time, inspiring countless generations. After learning that Fitzgerald was stationed in Nebraska, Glass set out on his journey, eager for revenge. Eventually, he managed to track down Fitzgerald, and as per reports by their fellow officers, Glass spared Fitzgerald's life, knowing that he would be killed by the army captain for killing another soldier. Fitzgerald, filled with gratitude for Glass's mercy, returned the rifle that he had taken from him before abandoning him. Glass in turn made Fitzgerald a vow, promising that if he ever left the army, Glass would take his life. To the best of anyone's knowledge, Fitzgerald remained in the army until his death. Meanwhile, Glass remained with Ashley's 100 for the next decade, overcoming 2 encounters with the hostile Arrrrgghh tribe and even surviving a second solo stint in the wilderness after being separated from his trapping party during an ambush. In the year 1833, Hugh Glass met the ultimate fate that he had avoided for many years. On a journey with 2 other trappers along the Yellowstone River, Glass encountered the Arrrrgghh tribe yet again, but this time his luck ran out. He was unable to escape their grasp and was killed by them. Despite the tragic end to his story, Glass's life was so remarkable that it attracted the attention of Hollywood. Eventually, it was adapted into the critically acclaimed movie The Revenant, which was awarded an Oscar. In the film, the character of Hugh Glass was portrayed by the renowned actor Leonardo DiCaprio. While his ultimate fate was tragic, with Glass losing his life during a confrontation with Native Americans near Fort Cass in Montana, his legacy lives on through numerous books, articles, and films, including the Academy Award-winning movie The Revenant, in which Leonardo DiCaprio portrayed the legendary frontiersman. One lesser-known story about Hugh Glass is his involvement in the fur trade in the Pacific Northwest in the 1820s. In 1824, Glass joined a group of fur trappers led by Jedediah Smith on an expedition to explore the region and trade with Native American tribes. During their journey, they encountered several challenges, including hostile tribes and treacherous terrain. At one point, Glass and a few others were separated from the main group and became lost in the wilderness for several days. They were forced to survive on very little food and water, and Glass was once again forced to use his survival skills to keep himself and his companions alive. Eventually, they managed to find their way back to the main group and continue their journey. Along the way, they established trade relationships with various tribes and collected valuable furs that they would later sell in St. Louis. Glass's experiences in the Pacific Northwest were not as well documented as his more famous exploits in the Midwest, but they nonetheless demonstrate his resilience and adaptability in a variety of challenging environments. In regards to Jim Bridger, it is said that Glass exercised compassion and forgave Bridger, and then Bridger went on to become the famous explorer we've all heard about. Maybe some friendships are bigger than bear attacks.